October surprise. It's a term you hear every election year. A surprise last 11th hour event that changes the presidential race and gives the person from behind the big win. Could this year's October surprise be $4,000 MSC checks and another round of LWA with existing repurposed $800 billion CARES Act 1 unused money? This is 28. Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Mornings LALATE with a continuation that started at 3 a.m. Pacific Standard Time with early Mornings LALATE, then went to Mornings LALATE, and now with a big bombshell for 28. I thank you for joining me on a really wonderful Sunday morning. It's a little foggy here. Actually, it's very foggy here. It's dark, it's gloomy, but it's the gloom of October. And October also sometimes means October surprise. Go to the front of the channel, subscribe, because we're going to get through this together, and we're almost there. 295,000 subscribers, 5,000 away from 300,000. Let's get it. Also, like this video. In this video, I'll be going over the October surprise and why MSC could be President Trump's October surprise. I'll be going over new data released today about why the race is so close, and then not one, but two new reports that says that Trump could pull a from-behind win if he does a surprise, and that the surprise might be policy-related, not scandal-related. Finally, I'll be continuing some of your incredible 2,400 comments in yesterday's video. I think that ranks as the highest, most commented video I have ever seen in recent months on this channel, if ever. 2,400 comments on one video alone. All right, let's get to the breaking news. The breaking news as we sit here today is that October surprises generally hit presidential elections right about now. And the question is whether an October surprise could be positive news rather than scandalous news. Over the years, we've seen a lot of October surprises, whether it was Gary Hart or what was attempting to be one earlier this weekend with Hunter Biden. But really, sometimes October surprises are positive news, not negative or scandalous news. And the big October surprise that this president could do, should do, and can do is a big round of executive order second stimulus checks and FPUC, or LWA. Oh, baby, this is getting good. First, let me explain the amount of money. Let me explain how this would work, and let me explain how you should be behind in the purple power to get this done. First, the amount of money. A round of stimulus checks that cost $1,200 stimulus checks, but we're not doing $1,200, but I'm just using $1,200 as a benchmark, is about 280 something billion dollars. So a $2,000 stimulus check round is about $300 billion. It costs about $300 billion in total to send it to every American that qualifies. So if you did $4,000 of stimulus checks, two rounds or just a single $4,000 check, that would cost about $600 billion. Well, how about another round of LWA? And you don't have to do 10 weeks of LWA. Let's just do a few weeks of LWA to carry us for a couple of weeks through this election. How much would that cost? That would cost about $200 billion. Ironically, it's about $800 billion that is currently sitting around that can be repurposed by this president by executive order. And that would cover a $4,000 stimulus check or two $2,000 checks, however you call it, and a few weeks of FPUC or LWA. The president has done this before. When he did it, it was in the case of LWA. At that time, he found unused FEMA money for natural events, hurricanes, tornadoes, fires, things like that, that was unused, and called up FEMA and said, you know what, your money is going to be used for unemployment. Unemployment. I know you're a fire disaster agency, but we're going to use it for unemployment because we need it for the American people. And he did it by writing an executive order for LWA. That was it. As you sit here today, he doesn't need to write another executive order for LWA. He has one. He just has to call up the agency, say, hey, this is the president. We're now repurposing your money that's sitting there for another round of LWA. How does he do it for executive orders? He needs to write the executive orders. Excuse me, for stimulus checks, he needs to write it because he doesn't have one yet on the books for stimulus checks. He does have one for LWA. And where's all this money? Well, it's foggy and gloomy this morning. I think it's time for scarf weather. Oh, yes, it's the scarf lady. Back in the day, people said, you need to start your own scarf line, LALATE. I mean, if we pull this off, I think I would. If we pull this off, I think I would. LWA and 2 stimulus checks, $4,000. Now, how soon would you get it? You could potentially get it by the day in which election night hits. By all accounts, the benefit of it may not be as great had you had the check in your hand before you voted. The check may arrive around Election Day, may arrive after Election Day, but I think the news of it would be a presidential October surprise. It would be incredible positive news for Americans. And you know why this would be incredible surprise? It would actually be a hit in a way that perhaps President Trump likes to hit hard, which is, hey, Nancy Pelosi screwed you over. She didn't give you stimulus. I'm doing it. And guess what? If you want to elect Joe Biden, you have to wait for March for your stimulus. I'm doing it right now. That's how I do things. It just reads perfectly. Absolutely perfectly. So with this video, Purple Power, tag the president, tag Jason Miller, tag the campaign manager, tag everyone. Now, full disclaimer, as I always do, this is not a Republican, this is not a Democrat channel, this is the Purple Power. My job is to get you stimulus. I don't care if it takes me switching shirts 7 times a day or brushing my hair a different way. If it gets you stimulus, it gets you stimulus. This is our opportunity to use events to get you stimulus. Now, let me explain to you why the president should do the stimulus. A new poll out this morning talks about the race, and the president is still only leading in 2 states that are swing states. These are the current poll numbers. And I got to tell you, these are the same poll numbers I'm seeing across 4 or 5 different broadcast channels. It's not like one broadcast channel has these numbers. Michigan, Biden up by 8 points. Wisconsin, Biden up for 8 points. Pennsylvania, Biden up by 7 points. Arizona, Biden up by 4 points. Florida, Biden leading by 4 points. North Carolina, Biden leading by 3 points. Georgia, Biden up by 2 points. Iowa, Trump up by 1 point. Ohio, tied. Texas up by 2 points. Where we are right now is you see the president is tied in 1 state and up in 2 states in those swing states. Now, he needs to win the majority of these swing states to get to 270 for the Electoral College to win the election, President Trump. By sending out these stimulus checks, by doing these executive orders, he could flip Georgia, where he's only down by 2 points. He could flip Arizona and Florida, where he's down only by 4 points. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania was down by 8 points. He could make it a tight race, like a dead heat. But he could absolutely, we already know that sending out stimulus is a 3-point pop. Well, he's only down 4 points in Arizona, Florida, and North Carolina, or 3 points. This would make it a dead heat. This would flip those states, and that would give him the win. It's as simple as that. He would then be leading in Texas, Ohio, Iowa, Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, Arizona. I mean, he would have 6 states. He would have 7 states of all those swing states. I mean, it's just such a non-brainer. I just don't understand why you wouldn't do it. Let me go to a news report out of today, ironically out of BBC. It says, even with polls showing an advantage for Biden, there's enough states where Trump is ahead or within a margin of error. If things break just the right way for the president, the Electoral College arithmetically could go for Trump. Even though Trump lost the national popular vote the last time around, he had a comfortable margin in the Electoral College where each state gets a number of votes based upon the population. Some of the swing states he won, like Michigan and Wisconsin, seem to be out of reach this time. Okay, I'm not focusing on Michigan and Wisconsin. That's at 8 percentage points, and so certainly Pennsylvania is 7 percentage points. The other ones are ones that are in range, and that's what BBC says. But if he can claw narrow victories in the rest, turning even more white collar, turning states like Pennsylvania and Florida, he can reach the 270. There's even other scenarios where he and Biden each get 269, creating a tie in which the delegates are determined by state representatives in the House, or a majority which would probably slide with Trump. Okay, Guardian also says much the same thing. But there still could be surprises before the election on November 3rd, and fears persist that even in the event of a Biden victory, Trump could pull off an October surprise. It's with that you see how significant MSC is. MSC, singularly, a campaign that I started on Friday for you to get your stimulus check, not to elect anyone as president, but to only get you multiple stimulus checks, hashtag MSC. The passing of the writing of an executive order and sending out MSCs and another round of LWA would determine the entire election. Can you imagine that purple power and the push of purple power and the focus on stimulus could absolutely change the face of the American landscape of this presidency? This is what is absolutely categorically jaw-dropping this morning. Millions of Americans need stimulus. Millions of Americans have not gotten stimulus. Ultimately, blame game is going to be in full storm next week. It's going to be Mitch and Nancy and Mnuchin. Everyone's going to be blaming everyone. And out of all that, one person can send out your stimulus at the 11th hour, get you the stimulus, and imagine if you had $4,000 in your pocket. Who are you going to vote for? Are you going to vote for Nancy's party? Are you going to vote for Donald's party? Let me go over some of your incredible 2,400 comments from yesterday. It would put Trump over the top. I think it was Sarah. If he did executive orders now and deal with Pelosi goes right, we get checks back to back, so to speak. Massive ZN. No need for multiple checks. Go for the home run. President Trump should do executive order for $8,000 to each people with the newly found $800 billion. That would make him look very good. Numbers, because remember, this channel is based upon numbers. We don't do superlatives or things like that. You can't do 8,000. There's not enough money. It cost about $300 billion for $2,000 for a single $2,000 check. There's only $800 billion sitting around. So 3 into 8 is 2.5. So you would get you could basically do $5,000 of a single stimulus check if you weren't going to do LWA, but you can't do. There's not enough for $8,000. Mike G. Let's see. George, the worst Congress history. Maxine, everything was shut down. American people deserve help now. Lucy, we the people, American people are deserving of something. Trump, do something now. Lisa, they need to quit playing games and give us the money. Tammy, riding out Pelosi, ashes to ashes, they all fall down. Santa, Mitch McConnell and the Senate Republicans have not done anything either. Doris, President Trump, it's within your authority. Please sign the executive orders to help the great American people, please. Doris Johns, saying it very loud and clear. Thank you for your comment. That was 18 hours ago. Darla Wyatt, Mr. Trump, we need executive order now. People are starving. Children, everyone, your butt. You need to do something for Nancy the Temple Doom. Melinda, I can't believe they're making it all about them and the American people are all last. Matt Brady, Trump should take his own advice. Go big or go home. Fawn Skinner, at least he has a home to go to. Some of the American people won't. I thought the president had the power, not the Speaker of the House. What a joke. Laura Nyberg, I feel that politicians are on the Titanic and the American people are sinking while the politicians are in their boats. Kevin Berglund, LALATE, I wish you were our president. You know what needs to be done. I do. And you can understand when we sit here today and I record, 10 videos a day and we get about 40 to 50,000 comments a day across the channel and social media. Everyone's saying the same thing. It's not like, 5% of the comments are saying it. Everyone's saying the same thing. Everyone's saying, do MSC. Do MSC. We're owed MSCs. We've been waiting around for MSCs. MSCs would save us. MSCs would save this economy. MSC would be the incredible stimulus that we need. MSC is not a partisan issue. It's just so obvious. So do the obvious. And that would be the October surprise. as the Hawks are trying to come and take me away before you can get to the finish line. The Hawks are not going to take me. I might look delicious, but it's days like this that we know how to get to the finish line. And ultimately, I have to be respectful to all my viewers. I understand that there's some viewers that want hazard pay, there's some viewers that want unemployment assistance, and there's some viewers that want other things. But ultimately, stimulus checks need to go out first. Then we see how much money is left over. And we could say, $5,000, all this by executive order as one stimulus check. Or we could say $4,000 as two stimulus checks and then do another round of LWA. And I understand that neither of the scenarios have hazard pay in them. But the important thing is that everyone would get these things. Everyone would get stimulus checks. Unemployment, of course, would go to people who are unemployed. This is how you turn things around. This is the October surprise, 16 days into the election. And that ultimately what you're going to see next week is a lot of talk. You're going to see a lot of talk from Mitch, a lot of talk from Nancy. If you watch Mornings LALATE, Mitch is going to have two bills next week, not one, but two. Nancy's going to have a lot of stories, as she's already shown over the weekend. She now says that there's no agreement on even language on a provision that has been agreed to for language for over a week. And you're going to see the blame game continue across the board. It's enough with the blame game. It's time to play the pay game. Pay us the money. We were owed multiple stimulus checks in the spring. We got one. You promised us multiple stimulus checks. You didn't give it to us, Congress. You promised us retroactive FPUC. You didn't give it to us. You promised FPUC would expire. You didn't do it. Every promise that we were given by this Congress has not come to fruition. And so as we sit here today, it's time that we get our money. It's time that someone starts paying us our money. And if you saw the hashtag in the campaign I started, I think it was on Wednesday last week, I said broadcast news reporters asked Joe Biden what his policy is on stimulus. We haven't heard. We haven't heard what Joe Biden's policy is on stimulus checks or LWA or FPUC or hazard pay. We haven't heard anything. And we haven't heard whether Joe Biden would co-sign this idea of Nancy Pelosi, which is we wait till March of next year to get your stimulus. And at that point, $2.2 trillion, is that the stimulus package you would do, Mr. Biden, or would you do $6 trillion? My personal opinion is $2 trillion doesn't cut it in March of next year. You have to do $6 trillion or $7 trillion. Ultimately, there's a lot of questions unanswered, but we have the answers here. We have the answers here to get MSCs, to get executive orders. So Purple Power, do your thing. Go to Fun's channel, subscribe. Subscribe because we're approaching 300,000 subscribers, 5,000 away. We're going to get there. Also like this video. Coming up next is Afternoons LA at 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. As always, stay informed, stay smiling, and stay of LA for more.